Now this is the binary star system. Let's do the names of it. The Gilese A and Gilese B. They're binary star system, but they still can have planets. Now some planets are orbiting one of the stars. So let's see what happens to one of them. There's no way for this binary star system to have some planets because of gravity issues. They are supposed to orbit, so they will all have to orbit very far away. So those most planets will orbit very far away. They're randomly spawned. Oh, it's because of the solar system. But even more planets, most planets collide because of gravity. So let's see what happens to most planets. Most planets cannot orbit. Until eventually there's some issues with one of the planets. At 3 million. At 3 million years from now, even there's no changes, the stars cannot orbit planets for a long time. Eventually, those stars collided, forming a yellow star. And some of the planets collided during the collision, even though. So now the star turns white even after a million years. The star looks like the sun. It can last 5 to 1.5 billion years. At 1 billion years before the time phase, it's turned white before it turns blue. So when this happens, many of the planets are already here. In the time phase, it starts colliding due to increased gravity. But the sun never increases mass, but increases gravity. Most planets will be destroyed. Even those planets will eventually come back. This habitat but this star will still remain alive because of this mass increase. Even before it exploded, this star becomes very massive that some planets fall. The star suddenly expanded, and everything gets engulfed, and eventually. But this thing will happen at 4 billion years from now. This is 4 billion years as the star turns to a white giant. Eventually, the star will more likely to be a black hole due to mass. Their mass will increase very much, that it turns into a black hole. This black hole will exist because the star goes supernova. The star goes supernova. So what happens if there's a planet try to orbit it? And they try to orbit it. Even though this black hole's gravity will be weak, planets can still orbit it. on a weak black hole. But this black hole will be weak enough, and eventually, yeah, this happened. And this black hole turned very big, that it consumes everything, becomes a supermassive black hole. It happens at 23 billion years from now. The black hole becomes supermassive due to planet killing eating planets and nearby stars. When whale planets try to orbit, they're more likely to be ejected. When the planet tries to orbit, they get collided, and there's no way for them, due to immense gravity, these planets will orbit very fast. And eventually this black hole will be found a star. Just look at this orbit of the planets. They orbited seriously. They're seriously all orbiting each other. The stars, look at this black hole. These stars, there will be no way for them to get. So even more likely, the black hole will be still here at 260 trillion years from now. The black hole will be still here, but then the planets are still there, but they are now very small due to the absorption on black holes. Eventually, something very fast had already orbited it, but they eventually get consumed at 1 quadrillion years from now. These black holes will last very long, until enormous of Google years. It's in the power of 15 years. Some stars are already arrived, but these black holes are inactive. These stars don't get hit for some reason, but the year will be still the same. The year will be still remains the same. Eventually, the black hole system will restart. For some reason, this usually happens on 23 quadrant. And eventually some satellites try to orbit. It, but they all fail due to humans from another galaxy. Humans lay eggs. Humans. And eventually, something will happen. Eventually, the black hole collapses at in 1 Google years. The black hole is evaporated completely. So at an unknown year after that, a big bang came. Let's skip the star came back over again. Now the orange star came back to life. There are still planets. So now the star is never going to move. Even still at Google years. The Google years start asking, and the star will still remain the same before another Google years. But this time it's different.